This learning environment session will focus on the mobilization of staff and student wellness. The session's presenters are Susan Billy, Manager of Behavioral Health Support Services, and Dr. Stacy Molnar-Main, School Climate Consultant. The session objectives are: define key terms related to student and staff wellness, provide an integrated framework for understanding how trauma, equity, school climate, and SEL impact the learning environment, and review strategies and resources for improving the learning environment and mobilizing for student and staff wellness. Language matters in this work. Definitions and terminology are important to the work around supportive learning environments.
In this presentation, we want to lift up and define these key elements that integrate with student and staff wellness in the learning environment: school climate, equity, trauma-informed practices, social and emotional learning, and PA career-ready skills should all inform the universal wellness practices that schools implement to ensure a safe, supportive, and engaging learning environment. When we talk about the learning environment, we are talking about a range of things that impact a student's learning experiences. The facilities, classrooms, learning materials and activities, and school-based health supports, as well as the disciplinary policies and practices. It is important to note that the concept of learning environment applies to face-to-face and online educational settings. This is the definition of school climate used in Pennsylvania. School climate is how students, staff, and other members of the school community perceive the school. School climate refers to the quality and character of school life. It is based on patterns of students, parents, and school personnel's experiences of school life and reflects the norms, goals, values, interpersonal relationships, teaching and learning practices, and organizational structures that are in place. Is the school physically, emotionally, and academically safe? Are there high expectations for behavior and achievement? Are classes engaging? And is there adequate support for students to succeed? Do all students in the school experience the school similarly? Or are some student subgroups less engaged, supported, and valued within the school? These questions get at the heart of what school climate is. A positive and equitable school climate supports the development and learning of all students.
According to the National Center for Safe and Supportive Learning Environments, the learning environment is impacted by strategies to promote safety, strategies to promote engagement, and strategies that impact the school environment specifically. Because Pennsylvania is a trauma-informed state with a commitment to educational equity, we refer to these definitions of the learning environment as safety for all, support and engagement, and equitable environment. Safety for all is defined as schools and school-related activities where students are safe from violence, bullying, harassment, and substance use. Engagement is defined as strong relationships between students, teachers, families, and schools, and strong connections between schools and the school community. Equitable environment is a learning environment where students have an opportunity to learn, regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, language, disability, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, family background, and/or family income. Now that we've defined the elements of the learning environment, we will explore the specific factors that contribute to each element. We will begin with support and engagement. Establishment of positive, respectful, and caring relationships with teachers and students is foundational to establish a connection with the learning environment. Utilization of trauma-informed approaches in the classroom provide the necessary components for students to engage in the learning process. It is critical that the learning environment is culturally responsive, promoting awareness of cultural identity and welcoming the varying differences among staff and students. Having the capability to understand the value unique differences bring to the learning environment fosters promotion of understanding others' perspectives. Please refer to the Pennsylvania Equitable Practices Hub for extensive resources. Students that feel supported through positive relationships with adults are more likely to become involved in the school community. A connection between teacher and student attributes to student engagement in content, better attendance, and motivation. Additionally, these factors can attribute to student engagement in school-wide activities and a general sense of safety within the learning environment. School safety encompasses multiple facets that affect all students. Each one on its own does not establish a safe school. Each facet must integrate with the others in order to provide an overall safe environment for staff and students. Emotional safety refers to the acquisition of knowledge, attitudes, and skills, whereas school staff and students are able to recognize and manage their emotions, experience and demonstrate empathy, establish positive relationships, and engage in decision-making. Physical safety refers to the protection of the school staff, students, caregivers, and community members from violence, theft, and exposure to weapons and threats. Emotional and physical safety bridge the connection to engagement and school participation. Bullying is defined as unwanted aggressive behavior, which occurs over time that involves a real or perceived power imbalance. Bullying is linked to negative physical, social, emotional, academic, and mental health issues, in addition to other violent and risky behaviors in adulthood. Cyberbullying is bullying behavior that takes place over digital devices, including computers, cell phones, and tablets. It can occur through SMS, text, apps, social media, gaming platforms, or other forums where content can be viewed and shared. When planning for bullying prevention, there are 4 misdirections to avoid. The first, avoiding zero tolerance policies. Bullying can be an early indicator of another problem behavior. The second misdirection to avoid is conflict resolution and peer mediation. Bullying is not a conflict between 2 individuals. It is categorized as a form of victimization. A child that is bullied needs to be assured that the school will do everything possible to stop the behavior from occurring. A child that bullies others needs to understand the behavior is inappropriate and needs to stop. The third misdirection is the use of group treatment for children who bully. This has potential to model inappropriate behavior, therefore worsening behaviors exhibited by students and reinforcing inappropriate behavior. The last misdirection to avoid is utilizing simple short-term solutions. This includes one-time assemblies or one-time staff in-service events. It is more important to focus on the overall school climate as a critical step in significantly reducing bullying behaviors. Use of alcohol, nicotine products, and illicit drugs is associated with risky behaviors and poor school performance, and has the potential to create a learning environment that is devoid of safety, respect, and support. Utilizing the data from the Pennsylvania Youth Survey can identify areas of need within a school and assist with future programming within the school community. Schools have historically been expected to ensure students are safe during times of emergency. Emphasis on building protective factors within the school community, in addition to identifying risk factors and early warning signs of problem behavior, is key. Safe learning environments offer positive relationships and systems that aid students and staff in the management of an emergency situation. as well as the resilience to overcome the challenges that result from an emergency. Collaboration with community emergency management agencies to develop a preparedness plan is key to preventing and preparing for emergencies. Schools have a responsibility to establish comprehensive preparedness plans for protection against emergencies and a memorandum of understanding between school entities and local police departments, as outlined in Chapter 10 of the Pennsylvania Public School Code. FEMA identifies key areas for schools to plan, including prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery. Act 44 of 2018 requires school districts to appoint a school safety and security coordinator. This person can collaborate with administration and community emergency management agencies to ensure necessary plans are in place and requisite training and drills are conducted accordingly. The physical environment refers to the lighting, ambient noise, indoor air quality, the level of upkeep on a particular building or set of buildings, and accessibility for those that have specific mental, physical, and behavioral needs, which are impacted by these facets. All of these facets contribute to a safe physical environment in which school staff provide instruction and students engage in meaningful learning. Additionally, the physical environment impacts the overall health of school staff and students, while playing a role in the level of stress present in the working environment. High quality instruction, achievement-oriented behaviors, high expectations, effective classroom management, and supports for struggling students help to characterize a positive, safe learning environment. But these are not standalone characteristics. Additionally, higher teacher satisfaction levels, responsibility among staff to promote achievements characterize a positive, safe learning environment. School staff using trauma-informed approaches in the classroom provide all the ingredients and resources necessary for each student to learn. They allow students to explore learning through inquiry. They accept more than one perspective and one right answer to problem-solving activities. When there is truly only one correct answer, the teacher redirects a student without shaming the student in front of the class. Activities such as popcorn reading are not used, and educators ensure that all students are prepared to present or read in front of their peers and provide multiple opportunities to respond. As a result of these types of instructional strategies, students feel free to explore knowledge and skills and engage in the learning process. Physical health is a critical component to overall student and staff well-being. Availability of physical education, a school nurse, and school health services play a role in minimizing health barriers, making connections for necessary community services, and maximizing the learning environment. Promoting mental health and providing programs and services within the context of the school environment is vital to overall human development. A comprehensive mental wellness focus is a collaboration between school staff, parents and caregivers, and community mental health organizations. Integrating equitable and trauma-sensitive practices aids in fostering positive academic outcomes and achievement for the student in all aspects of their life. School discipline is defined as the rules and strategies utilized in school to manage student behavior and practices to encourage self-discipline. School discipline is applicable school-wide, in classrooms, and with individual student needs. Efforts range from broad trauma-informed prevention to a more punitive approach. The manner in which discipline is handled plays a key role in the response and the manner in which students are able to engage in self-discipline during future instances. Resources for creation of an equitable learning environment can be found on PDE's Office for Safe Schools website, in the PDE Equitable Practices Hub, and at stopbullying.gov. All resources are included at the end of this presentation. Equity should infuse all aspects of the learning environment. In Pennsylvania, equity in the learning environment is defined as every student having access to the educational resources and rigor they need at the right moment in their education across race, gender, ethnicity, language, disability, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, family background, and/or family income. When we talk about equity, we need to start with acknowledging it is not a program or curriculum specific to a subgroup. It is for all students and staff. A safe and supportive learning environment can help students thrive, and every student, regardless of race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression, should be provided the opportunity to learn free from discrimination, fear, or harassment. Pennsylvania's definition of trauma for the educational setting is based on Act 18 of 2019, which updated the Pennsylvania Public School Code and has 3 components. Component 1 is exposure to an event, series of events, or set of circumstances that is experienced by an individual as physically or emotionally harmful or threatening. Exposure is only one part of the picture. Events do not determine outcome. Think about people you know who may have experienced similar traumatic events, but may have had great differences in how they responded. It is important to remember that exposure to the event is not what determines trauma, but rather how the individual experiences that event. This is why components 2 and 3 are critical to understanding trauma. In order for trauma to have occurred, the impact of the event needs to be considered. A traumatic response has occurred when the event has lasting adverse impacts and creates significant difficulty in cognitive functioning and physical, social, emotional, mental, or spiritual well-being.
Trauma-informed values are the lens through which we view everything that happens in the learning environment, including teaching and learning activities, rules and discipline processes, staff and student wellness, and all other school policies. There are 5 components of trauma-informed care values that are important to consider when designing the learning environment. Safety. Safety involves attending to and nurturing all aspects of safety in your school to promote optimal learning. Safety is embedded throughout the multi-tiered systems of support with a focus on universal practices that create a safe culture and climate for all students. Universal practices are the practices that are intentionally engaged in a school that impact or touch all students in the school community. Trustworthiness. Trustworthiness is the ability to be relied on as honest and truthful. All staff in schools engaged in trauma-informed approaches work are focused on recognizing that trust is earned from students, and to maintain that trust with each other, educators need to behave in ways that are honest and truthful. Educators understand that trust is a fragile resource and that building it is a process that comes with successes and setbacks. Patience is essential to this value. In addition, transparency is an important component of trustworthiness. Transparency involves holding people accountable for their actions. Transparency involves connecting with their students, staff, parents, and the community in authentic ways. Focusing on transparency involves a focus on relationship building, a core component of comprehensive mental health practices in schools, and an important factor in building resiliencies in students and communities. In a transparent system, organizational operations and decisions are conducted with transparency as a goal of building and maintaining trust with students, family members, staff, and the community. Collaboration and mutuality. Collaboration involves the concept of mutuality. This concept places importance on partnering and leveling of power differences between staff, students, parents, and among organizational staff from clerical and custodial personnel to professional staff and administrators. This concept demonstrates that healing happens in relationships. It is important to focus on relationships with an understanding that sharing power and decision-making is part of a trauma-informed approach. Engaging in collaboration involves understanding when shared power is possible and when staff retains the right to make decisions. One example is when staff must retain the right to make decisions in key safety situations. Identifying which category decisions fall into, student decisions, staff decisions, parent decisions, community decisions, or shared decisions, is helpful for everyone to see the whole picture and understand that not every decision needs to be a power struggle between students, staff, or staff and parents. Some areas where educators are involved in district development retain the power to make unilateral decisions. Things like curriculum, grading policies and procedures, and decisions about physical safety. Student and teacher collaboration can happen when determining the methods of learning and demonstrating that learning. Student decisions without teacher input, but with teacher guidelines, can include how a student wants to keep their own materials and who might be a good learning buddy. Collaboration between staff is also critical to equitable trauma-informed approaches. The work is challenging and involves planning, and it is done best in teams. Using each person's strengths helps develop a stronger approach to challenging situations and in developing school-wide or grade level goals and activities. Collaboration addresses issues of power and control in the school setting, creating an environment where all voices are heard and considered when creating programs, procedures, and policies. Empowerment, choice, and voice. Empowering students and families include ensuring that you are building on individual strengths and experiences, fostering a belief in students and families, resilience, and the ability of students and families to heal and promote recovery from trauma. This also involves ensuring educational staff feel safe and supported. An important part of empowering families is ensuring they have a voice. Voice, in this context, is the understanding that families and students may have historically been unheard or have been marginalized. In a trauma-informed system, it is understood that this lack of being heard is its own form of trauma. Systems that are engaged in equitable trauma-informed approaches cultivate self-advocacy within their staff, families, and students. Staff are empowered to do their work as well as possible and are provided adequate organizational support. Schools understand that the experience of trauma may be a unifying aspect in the lives of those who run the organization, educators, students, and/or families. Policies and procedures are developed to foster empowerment for staff, families, and students. Schools understand the importance of power differentials and the way in which families and students historically have been diminished in voice and choice, and often feel they have no power in decision-making. Cultural sensitivity. The final trauma-informed core value is cultural sensitivity. Engaging in culturally sensitive practices involves schools and districts building in equity work to move past stereotypes and biases. This includes offering access to gender responsive services, acknowledging the healing value of traditional cultural connections, and ensures policies and procedures are responsive to racial, ethnic, and cultural needs of students and families. When we are being culturally responsive or have cultural humility, we recognize that we can never be fully competent in someone else's cultural experiences, and that no group has a culture that shares all the same belief systems. We embrace curiosity and we engage in self-reflection. We seek to understand how values such as safety, empowerment, collaboration, and trustworthiness are defined, not only through a person's experiences, but also through experiences such as trauma, historical trauma, oppression, institutional racism, and interpersonal racism as well. We understand and accept that cultural context is relevant to our students, staff, and families' definitions of their own trauma-informed values. When implementing equitable trauma-informed approaches, it is important to understand that all people have bias as a result of their experiences and their culture, and that these biases are often unconscious in nature. Addressing how we address the knowledge-based skills and understanding that are required to successfully teach and interact with students and to work effectively with colleagues from a variety of cultures requires holding all forms of cultural difference in high esteem, or the development of cultural proficiency. It requires a deliberate focus. Approaching the learning environment from a trauma-informed perspective can lead to a positive impact on learning and development for all students and adults in a school community. Because this presentation focuses on mobilizing efforts for student and staff wellness, we will consider how trauma-informed values can work in an interconnected way to promote a positive learning environment. This may cause us to focus attention on such things as positive relationships, cultural competence, participation and engagement, and physical and mental wellness in the learning environment. It involves the infusion of safety, collaboration, trust, choice, and empowerment throughout school-wide systems of support and practices. It involves the establishment of teacher-student connections, which significantly increase students' engagement in content and improve academic outcomes. Utilization of universal practices informed by an equitable trauma-informed lens can create a school culture and climate for all students and staff that is positive. Universal strategies promote social and emotional competence, well-being, and development of all students. They include such things as clear and simple routines, clearly defined behavioral expectations, explicit attention to building self-awareness, relationships, and inclusive classrooms and schools, wellness routines and practices, and a focus on academic and disciplinary equity. Universal wellness practices are supported by intentionally planned school-wide and classroom activities designed to foster positive social, emotional, and behavioral skills and well-being of all students, regardless of whether they are at risk for mental health problems. These activities also include efforts to support staff well-being. For more information, you can consult the School Mental Health Quality Guide, which will be listed in our resources section.
Staff wellness in the learning environment begins with the alignment of well-being improvement efforts with assessment data and equitable trauma-informed values. This aids in the development of a comprehensive plan to address staff well-being. When utilizing the assessment data, begin with addressing factors that contribute to stress and wellness with a focus on physical, mental, and emotional aspects. Setting expectations of respectful and positive behaviors while integrating conflict resolution and restorative practices allows for promotion of supportive school environments for staff, students, parents, and caregivers. Utilization of regular interactive professional development opportunities improves knowledge and attitudes, as well as practicing skills for application. Use of staff well-being resources and activities is critical. Make well-being resources and activities readily available and accessible to all staff in various formats that meet individual needs. Integration of well-being activities and resources will shift attitudes and behaviors towards a wellness culture within the learning environment. Teach staff the benefits of a wellness mindset that focuses on physical, mental, and emotional. Utilize stress reduction strategies combined with compassion and resilience building strategies. These strategies aid in the reduction of burnout, psychological symptoms, blood pressure, cortisol, and absenteeism. Use of these strategies has shown improvement in efficacy, self-regulation, sleep, classroom organization, and self-compassion. Resources for development of a comprehensive staff wellness plan can be found on the Pennsylvania Department of Education's Office for Safe Schools website and at the end of the presentation. There are many resources available to support staff and students' social emotional wellness. Many school districts contract with an employee assistance program to provide a designated number of confidential paid sessions for employees. The employee assistance program may also have professional learning that could be available. The Pennsylvania Departments of Human Services and Drug and Alcohol Programs websites can provide individuals with resources within each county across the Commonwealth. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-TALK, provides 24/7 free and confidential support for people in distress, as well as prevention and crisis resources. Prevent Suicide PA is solely dedicated to preventing suicide. A variety of resources are available on the Prevent Suicide PA website. The crisis text line is available to all citizens of Pennsylvania. Texting 741-741 allows for a live trained crisis counselor to assist anyone that is in need of immediate response through a secure online platform. Additionally, there are crisis supports and other county mental health providers available within each county. Being culturally responsive is a journey and not a final destination. This journey involves choosing to stay engaged in introspection, embracing alternative truths, and ensuring that every student is successful. And this can be described through will, fill, and skill. Will is the desire to lead and a commitment to achieving equitable outcomes for all students. Fill is gaining the cultural knowledge about ourselves and others. And skill is where we apply the knowledge and lead the change, skillfully putting beliefs and learning into action. Diversity within cultures is vast and significant, each group with its own unique cultural needs. The family, as defined by each culture, is the primary system of support in the education of children. The school system must incorporate cultural knowledge into practice and policymaking. The arrows illustrate the ongoing unfinished nature of this work, as well as the interconnectedness of each aspect noted. These areas in the inner circle describe actions of cultural responsiveness. Each of these areas can be used as steps, starting with knowing oneself first, learning about others next, and then moving to action.
The last year has been a reminder to us that our well-being and development is impacted by a range of nested factors. These range from societal influences like the COVID-19 pandemic, racial tensions, and a highly emotional election cycle. It also includes features of the communities and neighborhoods we live in and the media we consume. On the innermost circle of this ecological model are families, peers, and school communities that surround children. Schools and educators can play a mediating factor in supporting positive youth development and wellness, even when children face significant stressors and other challenges within their developmental ecology. Mobilizing for student and staff wellness requires us to work with trauma-informed values and equities in mind, beginning with staff wellness needs and moving to school climate. The universal wellness practices that support student wellness also include a focus on establishing clear expectations and predictable routines, promoting positive relationships and supports, reducing exclusionary disciplinary practices, intentionally increasing mental health literacy, increasing social emotional learning, especially self-regulation skills, and providing opportunities to explore individual and community identities. For more information about the wellness strategies, we recommend that schools and educators become familiar with these free resources. CASEL, or the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, is a clearinghouse for research-based approaches to promoting SEL. Making Caring Common is an initiative of Harvard University's Graduate School of Education. It provides free webinars and resources and up-to-date research on educational practices that support student well-being. The National Center for School Mental Health provides tools and resources to support the development and implementation of comprehensive school mental health systems. Pennsylvania's school climate resources and free PA school climate surveys are available on the PDE website and can be used by any LEA in the Commonwealth. In addition, we've referenced the PDE Staff and Student Wellness Guide, which includes a curated set of links to resources to support universal strategies. Patton's PA-PBIS network provides access to consultants to support implementation of multi-tiered systems of support. And PDE's Equitable Practices Hub is a new online resource launched by Pennsylvania. It defines the 6 pillars of equity that should provide an organizing framework for school and district equity planning. It also offers a range of practices and resources that help school teams prioritize equity in their planning. Social emotional learning is the process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy identities, manage emotions, and achieve personal and collective goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. Resources to support schools in identifying SEL practices that might be relevant to their community are CASEL, the PA Career Ready Skills website, as well as Teaching the Whole Child, instructional practices that support SEL within 3 teacher evaluation frameworks. I've mentioned the PA Career Ready Skills a few times, and for those who aren't aware, they're basically social and emotional learning progressions that are divided into 3 SEL domains and 4 different grade band progressions. These were designed by PA and informed by PA employers. By design, the PA career ready skills reflect Pennsylvania's priorities to ensure youth are career ready and prepared to meet the demands of the 21st century workforce. Emphasizing student and staff wellness should not be approached as an add-on activity. It should be considered an integrated part of each school's and district's plan to deliver a quality education to every student. In doing this, it is important that the school team intentionally select universal wellness practices that fit the unique strengths, needs, and cultural and linguistic features of the students and families in your school community. In order to do this, it's recommended that schools create a selection strategy committee with diverse representation. That committee be tasked with reviewing the student body, including gender, age, ethnicity, cultural background, language, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic status to make sure that they understand their audience. When they identify universal wellness practices, it's recommended that these practices be pilot tested within the student population. And based upon the results of that pilot testing, that the practices that they choose to keep be adapted to fit the unique characteristics and considerations of the school population. Once you've identified those practices, it's important that schools provide resources and professional development to staff, all the while prioritizing cultural competence. And then finally, implementing those strategies with fidelity across groups and over time is important. A monitoring plan should be developed to ensure that the wellness activities are being implemented as they were designed. By doing these things, schools can sustain student wellness practices from year to year and improve them over time. Here are 5 different resources for helping schools select research-based practices for supporting student wellness. Links to these resources are available in the resource section of this PowerPoint. A key takeaway should be that schools can work to create equitable trauma-informed learning environments by advancing and sustaining universal wellness practices that fit the unique characteristics and needs of their school community. When we mobilize for student and staff wellness, we have a very clear goal in mind. It is to create safe, supportive, and equitable learning environments that promotes all students' social and emotional development. This necessarily begins with supporting teacher wellness.
How we work with our teachers and parents is the work. We need to make sure that we take time to cultivate and deepen our relationships with our students, with our colleagues, and with the families that we serve. We need to plan for learning opportunities. We need to use data for continuous improvement opportunities as well. And building capacity to support students so that they can connect within their learning environment.
We are close to concluding this session on the development of supportive learning environments. This was an overview of Pennsylvania's approach to this topic. There are 4 other sessions offered to support your planning. These are all available beginning today. Planning for Success focuses on approaches to planning. Moving to Action focuses on evidence-based approaches to implementation. Teaming for Success is critical for any school-wide effort. And mobilization of staff and student wellness is this presentation. In addition, PDE will offer 3 collaborative check-in sessions for schools that wish to have contact with a technical assistant consultant or to hear from other schools that are engaged in this work. They will occur on May 10th, May 20th, and June 2nd. These sessions dovetail with this one and will be available online. Here is a list of source citations and resources that were referenced in this webinar. We appreciate that you've joined us today and welcome your participation in the collaborative sessions and in other sessions. We would appreciate if you would submit your attendance via this tiny URL using your smartphone, QR code, or by typing in the tiny URL link. You may also access attendance directly, as I noted, using the QR code, but it's important that you jot down this exit code for the session, which is 64293. We wish you well as you take on this next round of important work around mobilizing staff for student and staff wellness.